our webinar series. So today we'll have the opportunity to learn from our speaker, Mutiat Afolabi. So Mutiat Afolabi will be talking on law, ethics, and the genome, shaping the future of dental and craniofacial research in Africa. Mutiat is a postgraduate researcher at Leicester Law School, University of Leicester, specializing in the intersection of medical law, ethics, and genomics. She holds a Bachelor of Laws (LLB) degree from Nigeria and is qualified as a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Following her legal practice, she pursued a Master of Laws (LLM) in Health Law and Ethics in the United Kingdom. Before beginning her doctoral research, she worked at the Wellcome Sanger Institute in Cambridge, gaining first-hand experience at the forefront of genomic research. Her PhD focuses on the ethical, legal, and social implications of whole genome sequencing in newborns, with a comparative analysis of healthcare systems in the UK and Nigeria. She is passionate about advancing ethical frameworks in medical innovation, dedicated to influencing policy and fostering equitable global conversations around genomics implementation in healthcare. So, dear colleagues, join me to welcome our speaker, Mutiat. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Melvin, for the introduction. I'm going to share my screen now. Can you confirm you can see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. And if you're joining from a different time zone, good morning or good evening. And my name is Mutiat Afolabi once again, and I'm excited to be having this discussion with you on law, ethics, and the genome. So I believe most people that are attending this webinar today, if not all, are researchers or professionals working in dentistry and craniofacial genetics. So you're already engaging with science that changes lives. But today, I just want us to take a step back and look at how we can make sure that science remains just, fair, and meaningful, especially in Africa, which is what my presentation is about today, and using that angle from law and ethics to ensure that we're having a good science, and equitable science, and meaningful genomic research in Africa. So before I start proper into my presentation, I would like to ask a question from the audience, just, by raise of hands, if you've ever felt that in your research, law or ethics has been a red tape that has slowed down your research, or you think that law and ethics is a barrier to innovative research in genomics. Okay, I can see one hand. You could also write in the chat box if you don't want to raise your hand. So I'll just keep that for 1 minute. So I can see somebody in the chat. Okay, material transfer agreements. Yes, data transfer agreements. Yes, you're right. These are things that take a long time when it comes to when we have legal interventions in genomic research. That is right. So I'll just wait for 30 more seconds to see if I get any other person to engage. So let me just move forward. I'll just say, well, had various interactions with various researchers, genomic researchers specifically, and the most interaction people would tell me around that is, oh, lawyers are always trying to, slow our work down. They are more of a barrier to our work. We want to do this research. They're trying to like put many red tapes around what we should do, what we should not do, or we're trying to like check dot all the I's and the T's. So in a way, I would just like to go into this discussion today, hoping to change that misconception. So thank you, Iman, for engaging, because this just confirms that we have misconceptions about the rule of law and how it could support science. So, and it's not that law would not does not have restrictions. There are instances where the law would come in to have restrictions, but from the major misconceptions about law in science is that okay, law is a bottleneck, ethics slows down progress, like our Iman mentioned about the MTAs and the DTAs taking a long time, and our other misconceptions, which is a global misconception this time around, is how people are saying Africa is behind in global genomics. And these misconceptions are just causing barriers to justice and innovation and trust when it comes to doing good science, which is where we think I am coming in today to say, okay, let's change that misconception. Let's create a different conversation around this. So the truth is that the law is not a bottleneck. It can be, but it can also be a blueprint that could guide how we can make trustworthy science. And while in changing the misconception about ethics slowing down progress, it can also be used to guide towards having a fair research where we come together on the common good of what the research is trying to achieve and trying to use science for the public interest while also ensuring that we're covering the minority interest as well. So, and truthfully, there is evidence covering the fact that genomic research is growing in Africa, in different countries in Africa. There are 55 countries in Africa, and we're growing. There's been various findings to the fact that African populations, I'm not a scientist, but you are the ones in the field, and we know that African populations have the highest level of genetic diversity, which is important for the rare disease variants identification, improving disease risk prediction, and the hope of advancing personalized medicine globally, specifically in Africa, for the purpose of this conversation. So in a way, African genomics research is central to an important genomic future of the world. So then how do we take it one step further? How do we then use the law and ethics to ensure as an enabler of inclusive research, responsible research, a sustainable genomic research, and a community-led research. So it's not us doing the research just for the sake of doing it, but making sure that we are carrying on the community, we are carrying on the people that are going to get the end result of the research. So these are just one of the benefits that law can bring into genomic research, and it's happening in other parts of the world. So for this webinar, this is just a brief agenda. We'll just look into why law and ethics matters to genomics and dental craniofacial research, genomics generally, and how law governs genomic research, the major ethical challenges and frameworks that we've mentioned earlier, some of them we mentioned earlier, and we'll just go briefly into them and touch into the ethical challenges and looking at the unique legal and ethical considerations that we need to consider when doing African research, especially dental and craniofacial genetics research. And I'm going to conclude and have a call to action for all of us that are present here and people that might eventually watch this recording. So just a quick introduction, like why law and ethics matters to genomics and dental craniofacial research, or the reason why I would say this discussion is important, why I'm bringing this to you today, is that well, genomics, this is something you own. Genomics is revolutionizing different areas of healthcare, and it's also doing that in dentistry as well. It is helping us to identify genetic factors in craniofacial anomalies, dental diseases, helping us to see into different ways of treatment or clinical therapies when it comes to treating diseases in dental and craniofacial sector. So, but the reason why it is really urgent is, well, I've said before that Africa has the richest genetic diversity in the world, and less than 2% of global genomic studies includes African data, which is a really low percentage and a staggering mismatch. So with less to no data, then how do we ensure that genomic research helps the people? How do we achieve the goals that this research that we intend to do with the research, rather than getting the negative aspect of it and using it to harm our people? It might not be physical harm, but it could be in terms of the global collectivity of it. So we have to think about, okay, in how data is used, in how data is collected, in how the end result of the research is going to benefit the people and the community where the research is coming from. We have to look at, okay, increasing funding so we are not relying. So these are just different issues. And where the law can come in and ethics can help with this is that the law can support to make sure that Africa is not just supplying the raw data. We are involving in this research, but we're also implementing the results. We are also at the table making decisions on how those results are used, how we're sharing the benefits, how the discoveries are being made in a way that would benefit us. So, but the really big problem in law is that law is most of the time, law and ethics usually lag behind science, because science really goes at a really fast pace. Right now, as you're speaking, there are different discoveries happening. There are different research going on. But before the law comes to place, there has to be policy. It has to go through different steps. So in a way, law always lags behind science. So it's until the discoveries have been made, and after the research has been made, before law now comes into place, and we're now starting to think about, then how do we regulate this? And this is a narrative that needs to change for us to get to where we want to be. The end goal of Africa leading genomic research, we need to make that narrative change. So I'm hoping that with more understanding of what the law can actually do in genomics, with more collaboration, we'll be more open to utilizing the law and ethics. We'll be more open to seeing the law as a supporter rather than a barrier to advanced genomics research in Africa. So what the law actually does in genomics. So it's easy, like we've said before. I guess a recurring theme here for this first aspect of my presentation is that we are thinking the law as the meat around it is the law is just a set of restrictions. But rather now we're wanting us to think about the law as a framework, as a protector and enabler of your science. So the law is not just there to make sure, okay, we are thinking direct boss, we are trying to like cross-check everything you're doing. We're seeing the law now moving forward as a key player to help you shape the outcome. We want to be there side by side with how you're doing the research. And it makes it better when we're looking at, I'm sure some of us who are involved in research would already know that these are the generic things that the law requires of you when you're doing your research. The major one, which is the first one on my list, which is consent and participation, which is ensuring that the participants give informed consent. But it's not just the informed consent. Informed consent has become a really common word now when we are saying, okay, let them have informed consent. So, like, it's just, okay, we've told them this is what we are doing. We've already ticked it. They've already signed it. But I want us to, after, rethink about what consent really is. Because genomics is a really unique field, and it can be complex. I would say it's complex. I won't say it can be complex. So when we're talking about informed consent, so what we are really saying when it comes to law is we really want the research participants to have an understanding of what they are consenting to. It's not just, okay, we are doing this research, like, do they understand it? For instance, let's say you go to a village, you're trying to do a particular research in a community, and those are your participants. So those participants might never have heard of DNA. You're trying to like break it down to them. Some people would not want to know, while some people will just feel like, okay, I want you to make decision for me. And some people just, okay, let's just get on with it. But the true informed consent takes time, which I understand scientists might not have. But the basic of this is that when you take the time to do it, this is genomic research is evolving, it's starting, we're going further than this. So if you take time to have that strong foundation for informed consent from the start, where you've taken that time to build trust in the community, to have respect for the cultural sensitivity within that community that you're doing your research, the next time you have a further research, it is easier to go back because you've already established that connection. So, and in some areas, this is Africa, we're not looking at consent alone as individual. We're also looking at consent as where it is communal. So, which means looking at consent goes beyond just the forms from what we've gotten from the Western world. So there was I actually had a good opportunity at the African Society of Human Genetics conference that we had in Uganda in February, where somebody did a presentation from in the LC team and the LC panel, panel, yeah, and they there's this research going on in Rwanda where a group of researchers they took their research into the community before they started the research in order to get informed consent in the real sense, connected with the people involved, the translators, broke down every aspect of the research so the community people would have an understanding of what was going on, and that really helped them with the research that they were doing. So if they were to go back next time, if they had other things they wanted to do, it would be easy to communicate to community leaders, get people to participate. So that understanding, they will continue to change those narratives. So the next one, when we're talking about something the law really considers it in terms of privacy and data protection. And the reason why this is more important is that genetic data from the legal angle is a very highly sensitive data because this is the data that it's not going to change. If anything happens to it, if there's a breach, if it's not properly protected, you cannot say that it's going to change. That person has been left open to risk. So even if you're saying it's going to be anonymized in a way, technology is evolving, things are changing, AI is here now. So it's a data that is really sensitive and it's deeply identifying. So then we're looking at who owns the data, and we're also looking at the issue of benefit sharing, then who decides how that data will be reused when it comes to, okay, this is genetic data, future results can come back, you may need to do some reanalysis later down the line. So who has that power to dictate that? So these are things that needs to be decided on from the get-go before the research actually starts so that there is really no confusion around it and there is no complexities or any overlap. So these are legal and ethical questions that the law looks to protect when involved in genomic research, and they are really practical issues and they are important issues that even the researchers might think, oh, we're trying to end that your work, but it's really important. And in a way, it gives us a big picture of improving genomic research in Africa. So I guess a really important example when it comes to looking at getting local data within Africa, then it's shared with a foreign funder. But once that African genetic data, for instance, is shared with a foreign funder, who has the control? So that is a typical example that just came to my head when we were looking at, okay, the tensions between the researchers, the tensions between the funding institutions and the communities, having that say. So later down the line, I'll give an example of something that is happening in Australia, but it's not really in terms of genetics research and human genetics. It's in terms of the Nagoya Protocol. So that is another thing. But it's just for me to point out the fact that when we look at how the law comes to protect genomic research and the researchers themselves, it's seen as an enabler of research. So the regulatory system right now, which is something that it's needed to ensure we can achieve all those goals of protecting both the researchers, the communities, and the people that are involved in the research, it is currently absent or it's weak in some countries where we have, for instance, data protection laws, but those data protection laws are not detailed or comprehensive enough regarding genomic research. So you have like generic laws covering data protection. But the uniqueness of genomic research, which is something people who are legal practitioners in genomics field are saying that, okay, uniqueness of genomics is something that we need more detailed, customized legal regulations for genomics when it comes to the research. And this can only be achieved when we're having that collaboration. So currently, from my research, the data protection, out of 55 African countries, 36 countries have data protection laws. 16 countries do not have, and 3 countries only have a working draft. So it's in a good way. That means we have more than 80% of the countries in Africa have data protection laws, which is a good step. So we are in the right step, but it's not us taking it further. But I'll get into that detail later down the line on how we can make such improvements on these issues. So the next thing I would like to talk about is why ethics matters, because in healthcare field, law and ethics go hand in hand. So when we're considering law, which is the fixed regulations, we're also looking at ethics. And ethics is very important when we're looking at where the law is silent or where the law is still evolving because of the different stages that the law takes. Ethics is used to guide these choices that researchers are faced with or clinicians are faced with when dealing with their patients. So a key aspect of ethics is the autonomy and the consent. So consent also comes under law, but it also comes under ethics when we're looking at where there is an overlap between the autonomy of somebody else and consent or autonomy of that person, where they consent or do not consent. So the respect for people going beyond the consent, from looking at their cultural sensitivity, when people say, okay, they would like to get involved, they would like to, okay, withdraw themselves from the research. So it's respecting that aspect of it. So risk of exploitation, which is another angle that ethics also covers, it's when we're looking at exploitation, there are some things, okay, it is legal. It's legal for us to share data with your funder, share data across other countries. But the risk of exploitation that comes from it is when we're looking at the power angle, where who has more power in that contractual relationship, who has that more power in that funding relationship. So this helicopter research is just a term for anyone who doesn't understand it about, okay, we're getting the data from local community, probably in a country in Africa, in Nigeria, but you're transferring that data to another country to analyze data. Then once that data leaves the local borders, who has more control when we're talking about benefit sharing, when we're talking about the discoveries? So ensuring that we're getting benefits back to the community, benefit of the discovery, access to the data, making sure that there is open access to it and it's accessible to everyone, and the results and benefits are made available. So these are important things that I want researchers to be firm upon, involving the legal team, making sure that all these terms are securely detailed in your research before you start. So considering the research subject, not only for the data, but for them to also enjoy the benefits in different parts of Africa. So looking at justice and equity, that just fits into what I've just said now, which is ensuring that genomic research is not deepening health inequalities in different communities within Africa, and ensuring that we have equitable access to research benefits, not just extraction of data. So community engagement, like the example that I mentioned about the Rwanda case study, where researchers must respect community norms, understanding the cultural values within those communities that you're doing the research upon, trying to invest time to understand it, and check that with the needs of each research group participants, and not just looking at the one size fits all strategy of, okay, this is how we're going to get the consent. How you get consent from one person might be different from how you get consent. Their understanding of the procedure might be different. So the goal is us looking into achieving our own local informed consent models, and this can be something that would vary from different African countries to another African country. So, and I believe that if we consider this context in implementing this ethical frameworks, we can make genomic research better. And even it is possible where we set examples for the Western counterparts as when we set out all the specifics, and Africa becomes leaders in genomics. So the last point, looking into return of results, is just talking about something I've said before, how ethics would look into how and when the result findings are disclosed to participants. For instance, if the participants want to know, for it might the talking about results, return of results is not usually possible when we're looking at the genomics research itself. But when we're looking at the clinical implementation, this is applicable. So sometimes applicants will tell you they would only want to know something, they don't want to know something. And sometimes you can have this overlap between law and ethics, whether the clinician should disclose or not disclose. So this would lead me, I'll do a quick case study, if just a quick 1 minute for people to engage. So if a genetic test unexpectedly reveals a serious health risk in a participant's child, for instance, which is outside the scope of the research that you eventually included them in. So should the parents be informed even if they said no more results? So just a quick yes or no, or if you could just type something quick in the chat, or by a raise of hands, just so I know people are still with me. Okay, so I have a yes. So thank you, Aziz. Is your raise of hands yes? Okay. Okay, I think I'm having a lot of yeses. Okay. So I think the parents should be informed from Queen. So it's a lot of yes. No one is saying no. Okay, that's good. Usually I'll get people to say no. Okay. So, well, this is a really tricky ethical question anyway, because it's looking at where ethics gets deeply personal. So you're looking at, okay, do we honor the choice of the parents or do we intervene? So I think, which is almost everyone that has said yes, you're looking at, okay, we should intervene because it's for the health of the child in this situation. So the reason why for this that there is really no one way answer, whether it is yes, whether it is no, which is some people might say, okay, this is where law gets complicated, because as much as ethical, when we're looking at ethically, we're looking at, okay, the clarity, like I've said before, and the specificity of the original consent that has been given. So you said you want to do this procedure, you want to do this test, a consent has been given, right? And it is for that exact one. So you came about something else and you feel, okay, this is really important. So then if it's really important, then we're looking at the next step of, okay, the severity and the actionability of that particular condition that you've discovered. So from the scenario, we're saying it's a really serious health risk, right? Then we're looking at, okay, is there a legal or regulatory framework that allows us to disclose that particular information? Because if we don't have that, then it could be an issue. Okay, are we going to the ethics committee if it is available within the institute or within the hospital, or the research team if you have someone close to you? So it's really not a yes or no scenario, but it's looking at, okay, the specific details. But if I were to give a direct answer, I would say in most, looking at this scenario that I've painted now, in most frameworks, when it comes to law and ethics, we would say that disclosure would be justified if the information is something that is actionable. So when we're saying there's a serious health risk to that participant child, then I would say, do we have like a treatment strategy that is available for that particular risk that has been found? Or do we have, like, is this something that is an actionable condition? Even if there's no treatment available, is there therapy that can be tried to, just giving them more problems that they already have to deal with? So it's really, because it could then open you to illegal action if that particular risk is not actionable and you've told them of a problem that is now causing issues to the family. So, because now it's going to be the parent that you're dealing with who has the power, the legal authority to consent in that particular situation. So, if anybody, when we get to the discussion session and anybody has a comment they want to talk about this, but for now, this is just the most probable answer to how to deal with the situation. So, it will be best when you have your legal team or your ethics committee to talk to before you then disclose that information to the parent. So I have a second case study. I'll just go quickly. So this one is just looking into how a researcher collects dental tissue from patients in Nigeria. So I've used Nigeria as a case study. for a craniofacial genetic study. So, and they promised to anonymize it, but later that data, probably due to like the funding terms and conditions or one or two reasons, they shared that data with a private biotech company abroad who would then use it to develop dental treatments. So what are the issues that we feel that arises from this particular case? So I know you're not lawyers, but it's just, like something that, do you feel this is okay for them to do, for them to transfer the data, or do you think it is illegal or it is unethical? So just, we go back. Okay. So just like a few, 1 to 2 minutes. I'll just wait for a minute. Thank you so much for engaging with me anyway. So I know I'm not just talking to myself. Okay, so Queen is saying it's a case of a breach of data privacy. Yes. Legal angle. So irregular. Okay, so I don't know if Soraya is a scientist or genetic researcher. So irregular would mean, okay, are you saying it doesn't really happen or such a scenario would not occur? Or are you saying, okay, that is wrong when you say irregular? So I'll just wait for 30 more seconds and I'll go back to the discussion. Okay, you're saying it is wrong. Thank you, Soraya, for confirming that. So, a few more seconds. Let me go back. So, like you said in the comments, it is actually wrong because there's been a violation of the informed consent, which is the basis of any genetic research is the consent, except that there are other legal bases for other types of research where we can have, okay, it's a public reason and that's from the government angle, or like there are other reasons that you can use to process data from data protection. So, but majorly, most often than not, when it comes to like genetic research, we rely on consent. So where that consent has not, you've not put it in the consent forms that this data is going to be transferred to another person, a third party, and that particular term has not been understood by the participants, then in that situation, where that happens, there's been a violation of the informed consent. There's been a data breach. I wouldn't say it's a data breach, but I would say it's a violation of the data subject rights. Then it's an unlawful transfer of the biosamples, which comes to the violation of their rights. Then there's been an absence of material transfer agreement. So I didn't put that in the context, but before you transfer anything to any third party, it has to be in the consent forms. There has to be a material transfer agreement so you can know how you're setting out, okay, is there any benefits going back to the data subject or to the research? So like there is probably they will fund more research in the community. So there is something going back to the community where the data has been taken. So that's the legal angle of it. And the ethical angle is we're looking at there's been a disrespect for the participant autonomy, because the autonomy is that they get to decide what to do with their data. It's their data. They've consented for the researchers to use their data for that research, but they've not. They had that choice to allow you to use that for that research. But by using that data for something else, then their autonomy have been disrespected, which is something that where that information is known to the data subject, they can take legal cases up or like go see their lawyers for it. So this is something that then it becomes an issue that the law is preventing research. So, and it can also lead to exploitation and lack of benefit sharing. So where there's been no clear disclosure when it comes to how data is being used. And this issue can also cause an issue of trust from the community, where we are saying that, okay, this is how research is being done, where you get the data, you're not informing the participants about how the data is being used, you're not letting them know the extent. Although sometimes we tend to say, okay, too much information might be bad, but we're trying to we change that perspective as to these are people's lives. It's genomics data, and it's fundamental to their person, to their family, to anyone who is related to them by their DNA. So we need to ensure that we are protective of it because it is applicable to everybody. So in this kind of situation, if it were to happen to anybody, the protective or actions that could be taken is maybe from the get-go, have in the consent form, and not just putting them in the consent form, ensuring that there is informed consent. So the law is not restricting you from carrying this out, from involving in collaborations with a private biotech company. But what matters is ensuring that the people that are involved in that relationship, in that collaboration, all the way to the data subject, are aware of it and they are consented to it. When they withdraw their consent, then those people should be taken out. Their data should be taken out and deleted from the data that's going to be transferred. So it's also about using the material transfer agreement as well, setting out all these details, getting the ethical board approvals from the institutional review boards, the RIBs, IRBs, if you have it within the institution, and establishing community governance. So it's just an expansion of the consent. So not just individual consent where people know that this is what you're doing, this is what you're trying to achieve. You've broken it down to them. Then the community can get involved in it. Okay, this is how we want our data to be used. This is the benefits that will accrue to us. It doesn't have to be money. It could be benefits in terms of, okay, setting up a lab, benefits in terms of, okay, we're going to give you access to some of our technologies so that everyone is getting something out of the research collaboration. So now I'll go on to thank you for engaging me with my case studies. I just thought it to be something for us to do outside of me just talking alone. And this slide is talking about the Africa specific challenges and the opportunities. So I've mentioned most of this already, looking at the fact that from the legal angle, from the angle, my own perspective that I'm coming from, my own field, is that there is still a lot of work to be done when it comes to our legal infrastructure, which is something that I feel is important to support the research that's going on in genetics, especially or looking at the specific dental and craniofacial genetics research. So since we lack, the specific genomics regulations, which would help us understand, okay, this is what's going on with genetics research, and the researchers know that best, then having that collaboration with the policymakers, with the legal practitioners. So when we share information, we both understand ourselves. So we are not just coming from the angle of, okay, we want to just regulate this without understanding the ingoings of what it entails, what research entails. So it's that collaboration that is needed for us to be able to get those regulations that we need to improve and advance research in Africa. So, and what common challenges when we're looking at the history of exploitation when it comes to getting data and not bringing back the benefits to Africa. So for people that are more learned about it, it could create an issue of, okay, a mistrust or looking at the fact that we don't have access to the data. You get the data and you're getting to it's been published. Is it open access? Is it not? Can anybody be able to get access to that data when it's been taken from Africa, or is it just only being utilized and beneficial to people in the Western world? So it's ensuring that we're getting that equality, that visibility of the data we are doing, the ownership of the research that we are doing from Africa. So the other issue when it comes to infrastructure would also be, I forgot to put it on the slide, is when it comes to the ethical review boards. So making sure that people on the boards are not just the scientists alone. It's also including the people that have expertise in all the areas that need to be considered. This would fast track getting ethical approvals, because we're not just waiting, okay, we're not reviewing the research and trying to see that, okay, this is what is going on. I have more questions. I don't understand this. Or someone who doesn't understand and just approving without considering all the people that need to be protected in the research. So there are some countries that currently have national genomics laws, like that, or that are working on it. Like South Africa is really making waves, making headways when it comes to specific genomic regulations. Zimbabwe, Tunisia, Egypt, and Rwanda from my findings, from what I could find. And from Nigeria, we're still getting there. So it's also the opportunities that we could try to make from this is, like I've said, the capacity building and funding. most of our funding right now in research generally in Africa is most of them are international funding. So these are things, initiatives that are already happening when it comes to empowering African researchers, but it's different thing for us to empower the researchers, and then there is a brain drain where the researchers are not encouraged when they don't have access to the technology to do their work, and then they move back to the Western countries. So then we are losing the investment that we are putting in there. So it's ensuring that we're empowering the communities, empowering the African researchers. I put H3 Africa there as a really good example of what has happened in Africa when it comes to genomic research. And there were a lot of initiatives that are also that have continued after that or continued alongside with H3 Africa. So the examples of the great things that happened when H3 Africa was going on is looking at ensuring there's cultural awareness of what is going on, collaboration between different researchers in different countries and different institutes, making sure that ethical, legal, and social implications are considered, which is something what I've been speaking about all for the past more than 30 minutes now. So it's looking at all these examples, all these great things that allow History Africa to perform well until the research concluded has helped facilitate the implementation of genomics research, the advancement of genomics research, and this is what we want to continue. So, and making sure that we have African-led ethical frameworks and policies in shaping genomic governance. So, which is something that I am currently on the path of. I'm doing that research and looking into, okay, how can I make sure that we have policies, we have laws that are focused and customized for the community where the research is going on, and not just transferring Western ideals. So I put a quote there down there saying African voices must not only be included in African research, we should lead the research. So not just for the data, we should get involved in, okay, getting all the stakeholders together in the room. Because I found situations where I'm in a room and people are talking about genomic research, and I'm thinking, what about the governance angle of it? What about the ethical angle of it? So I know there are a lot of genetic researchers who are experts or who are learned when it comes to ethics. But as much as your expertise is in ethics, it's also good to bring the legal practitioners into it, people who are for consultation, so that we have that all-round knowledge and angle on what research is going on and how to make sure that the research is ethical and it's responsible and it's inclusive for her benefits in Africa. So my next slide is just talking about inclusive genomics as the future, which is bringing everyone together, being intentional about ethics in the African community, not just taking ethics for the word of it, but actually implementing it, demanding benefit sharing. I know when it comes to the funding issues, it can be a bit tricky, and when it comes to benefit sharing, but this is something that we can actually push for when we have all the stakeholders together in the room, working together, collaborating together with researchers, the participants, the communities, the lawyers, the ethicists. So I just want us to imagine a research project where the community is helping to shape the research questions. You tell them this is what you want to do, and they are giving you, because they understand what you want to do, the purpose of it, the aim of it, then they can, with that engagement, they can give you more information that you don't even know about the community that could actually be important and feed into the research. So looking at researchers, ethicists, and lawyers co-designing the study. So we would not be in the lab with you, we would not do the work for you, but when we understand it, if any ethical issues arise, we're able to, okay, think together, solve it together. It can help improve and advance the legal regulation of genomics within Africa, and also looking at local ethics committee not only being consulted. So it's when we're working together, okay, there's an ethics committee that combines all these professionals from the different fields, and making sure that when it's genomic research, even though it can be a little bit different from the genomics when it comes to clinical genomics, so when it comes to returning of results and benefit sharing, but it's something that can be achievable if we have inclusive genomics. So this is just something that I feel if we consider this as stakeholders, then we can have an inclusive genomics as the future. of genomics in Africa and for the purpose of this webinar for the Dental and Craniofacial Genomics Society. So in conclusion, I would like to say that I hope I've been able to change your perception on the law being a barrier, but as a protector, and which protects participants, which helps make sure that the research we're doing is legal and ensuring that we are within the ethical boundaries, which is really important, and making sure that we're always aware. So where we don't have a particular law that's expressly regulating that particular area of research, we can have the ethics committee decide, okay, is this something that we should do? Is this how we should take the steps that we should take? So just together, I want us to also get involved. The law is made in vacuum. It's about understanding what is going on in the society, reflecting back on societies where you get involved in advocating for better genomics law in Africa, then we can have a better genomics research that would advance Africa. So this interdisciplinary collaboration across science, law, ethics, and community is what I want us to call for. So we need the dentist, we need the geneticist, we need the ethicist, and we need the lawyers at the same table. So we are thinking about the research, look in the room. Is an ethicist involved within the discussion? Is a lawyer being involved within the discussion? So being intentional about ethics in African genomic research is what I would like us to take forward. So just to conclude, I would like to say that as a call to action, I've just wrote this, it's kind of a summary of what I've been saying from the beginning, is that if law and ethics are overlooked, genomic research risk repeats the pattern when we look at the colonial pattern of research where data is taken and we're not getting anything back from it. But when all stakeholders, from the researchers to the policymakers, the clinicians to the communities, they are meaningfully involved from the outset to the clinical implementation of the research results, then we can reduce the risk, we can ensure that the benefits of genomic science truly serves Africa and its people. Thank you so much for listening to me. I would like to open the ground. We have 10 minutes more for questions and answers, comments, but I would like to thank my founder, the Wellcome Trust, my university, African Society of Human Genetics, and the African Society of Dental and Craniofacial Genetics. That is my LinkedIn profile, and that is my email address if anybody wants to talk or collaborate in the future. Thank you so much. Going ahead with my slide.
Thank you so much, Mutiat, for the excellent lecture. We've actually learned a lot, and I think the floor is now open for members to ask questions.
Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Mutiat, for the excellent presentation. I just want to commend you for bringing this home so that we all know that as much as we're trying to look for, do the discovery part of genomic research, we should bring the ethics and law into consideration. So I guess my question to you is, how much of these are you trying to, how are you trying to bring the current researchers in Africa and the future researchers into knowing some of these things that you shared with us today? This is a small group, but I believe that there's so much going on the continent that is still a colonial style research. So how can you help prevent us from making the same mistakes? What's your strategy, whether it's research or policy dissemination? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm just one person and I'm trying to make my mark in the genomic field. So I would say a direct answer to that question is, as you've said, it's everybody taking the action up. Like I've called everybody to action now. So you're here. We have 24 people in the room. You've heard about this. You meet somebody else. You could be in that work group. You could be in that stream. You could be in a particular community where researchers come together. So it's about you bringing this up and making sure that you're pushing that forward, not being shy of speaking up and saying, okay, this is where we want our research to go for. Have we considered all those things when we're about to start this research? I know in Africa, we can be hard to, take change, but innovation has to happen. We're doing innovative research. That is what genomics is about. You are the ones doing the research. You're the ones doing the science. I'm just from the legal aspect of. But I'm trying as much as possible to understand what is going on, which is a task that I've taken on. I'm also getting involved in different. So like there are different communities that have been put together in the Western world. So I'm doing my PhD in the UK, and I've had the opportunity to get involved in some volunteer groups or some consortiums on genetics. And sometimes I'll be in the room and it'll be just me. So it's getting involved in those, getting into those doors and making them aware of, okay, this is what's happening in Africa. If you're talking about I'm in a work stream where they're talking about global ethical issues when it comes to newborn sequencing. And then I'm thinking, all these issues you guys are talking about, you're forgetting the African context. So I'm there in that room. I can speak up for the African context. So it's about us getting involved in it and bringing that information back. So, which is something I'm trying to do, is bringing the information back. I'm working on doing a podcast right now. It's still a work in progress on, okay, where I will talk about genomics research from the legal angle. So that is something I am taking up. So it's calling everybody now to, okay, as much as possible, wherever you are, speak up about this, learn more about it, get involved in it. So there is really, it's not that we have that solution, but it's about always working, always reflecting on it and trying to make that change. So that is how I believe we can improve genomics research in Africa. Did I answer your question, Aziz?
Yes, you did. Thank you very much, Mutiat. Thank you. Yes, you did. And I'm also going to take up your invitation to engage further.
Yes.
In the process of starting an interdisciplinary program in human genetics at the University of Lagos. And
Yes.
I'm trying to see if I can get resource people to speak to my students. So I'm
Yes.
going to take up your invitation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There's another hand up. Tens.
Yes, again, thank you. This is a very eye-opening meeting. I really appreciate bringing this topic. As Professor Butali said, this is probably overlooked in the African continent because we focus mostly studying genetic variation rather than the legal, ethical aspects.
Yes.
So thank you. So bringing this point for these young people here. So my question to you is, can you give us an overview right now in Africa? Which part or which country has a strong legal framework in terms of genomics? If you have any review on that, because it seems a lot of hypothetical, theoretical rather than on the ground.
Well, I would say from my research right now is there are 36. Okay, let me see. So while I was there's been a lot of research going on looking into because when we're looking at the legal angle, the legal field, we classify genomic data as data. So it falls under it. So when we are looking at legal regulation of genomic data, we are still looking at it from the perspective of data, general data. So right now, most countries have their data protection laws regulating genomic data because data has been defined, and personal data also includes your gene. So, and from those countries, we have out of 55 countries, like I said in presentation, so we have 36 countries currently that have a data protection act. So 16 countries, but the countries that are leading mostly, I think I mentioned 5 countries. Let me open that. So we have South Africa. South Africa is leading, but we want it to not only be a focused part of the continent that is leading when it comes to data protection, when it comes to knowing how to regulate research in genetics, that it will be of benefit to the continent, to that community where the research is going on. So it's now, what country are you from, Tess?
Yes, thank you. I was also more interested on a legal enforcement perspective. I know every institution, they have ethics committee, but the enforcement and the law side.
Okay, what country are you from?
I am Ethiopia.
You're from Ethiopia.
But I live in the US.
Okay. Well, I don't have that data now, but it's something that I could check and I could get back to you. So, regarding Ethiopia, but let me try to open this. I don't think we have time now because yes, it was last week I was looking into the data protection. Okay, let me share that link with you on this group.
Yeah, I will reach out to you, but I think it was
I
very.
have the link to the site, so I've just pasted it in the chat for anybody that wants to check it. So, which
Mhm.
takes you to the countries that have Data Protection Act.
Okay.
So, for anybody that wants to have
Thank,
that, so you can just check that.
okay. Thank you, Mutiat, for sharing that link with us. Before we close, I just have one question and remark. This
Okay.
has been a very excellent and very interactive talk and very relevant in our context. So you've you've mentioned that there are 36 countries with data protection laws. And I
Yeah.
understand that most of these data protection laws are being developed and tailored towards what you call colonial style of research. However, to prevent that, but however, are there any initiatives that are being developed to be able to harmonize the laws, data protection among these 36 or all the African countries so that it could foster data sharing so that we can be able to, do more research to be able to understand our own genetic basis of disease development?
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I'll just correct for thanks so much for your wonderful question. That is really a good question. So I'll start with saying that the laws are not focused on the colonial angle of regulating the law, of regulating research, but most of it is just from when we look at it, it's from like a copy and paste version of it. So we know, okay, this is a Data Protection Act from a particular country. Then we take it, the draft, and we just remove one or two things and we use it, forgetting to look at the context within how we operate within that particular African country and do that work to have something that is relevant to us. So yes, let me backtrack and say in a way, we're looking at, okay, this is a colonial angle of regulating genomics. But right now, currently, we don't have a general data protection regulation for genomics research that is Africa. So it's each country, because when we're looking at data sovereignty as well, that angle comes with it. And it's something that is a good initiative that all African countries to come together, maybe under the African Union. Because I was looking into African CDC, which is a really good initiative, looking into, okay, what are the problems happening within Africa? So I'm looking into it to see, okay, could we get involved in that and see how everyone could come together, have an initiative on fostering cross-border data sharing. For in Nigerian Data Protection Act, we have regulations that covers cross data border sharing. So it's generic. It applies to everybody, whether you're in the commercial industry, whether you are in the construction sector, like any sector you are, that is a generic regulation on cross-border data sharing. So that is allowed with it's something that you see in almost all data protection acts, but we don't have something that is international right now. Like an example of the GDPR that is in Europe, which is applicable to almost all countries, and it's easy for you to have data being exchanged across the borders. So that is something that we could work towards when we collaborate together. And one thing about science is global. It's not restricted to any other, like it's not restricted to borders. So when different scientists under this like big initiative like the African Human Society of Genetics, when we're taking that into consideration, when we come together, we're not just pushing the law to the back. Because that was something I observed when I attended the African Genetics Conference, and in all my discussions with people I was able to talk to, I was wondering like, why did we not have a speaker talking about the legal angle? We had the LC section where people talked about the ethical, but it wasn't really legal. It was just okay, people going into the community, and I thought this is a really important discussion, which is why I try to like, okay, make this my topic. Like, let's get us involved in it. It's not just lawyers coming in, it's still your domain. You're just helping us understand what goes on within it. And we know how to now push forward those policies and say, okay, let's regulate it. So it's not injuring the research that is going on. So we are making the proposals that everyone has come together for the benefit of the researchers. It's making sure your research is going on perfectly, and we're making sure that, okay, we don't have a lot of restrictions. So far, it is still ethical science that is being done. Did I answer your question, Professor?
Yes, absolutely, you did. Thank you so much. So, dear colleagues, I think we've gone over time, and this shows how interesting and interactive the talk was. And thank you so much, Mutiat, for giving us the opportunity to learn from you. And we'll
Thank
be
you
more
so
than
much.
happy, yes, to have you give this lecture and more in the future. So,
Yes,
thank you.
I'm open to comment. I had one topic that I wanted to discuss, but I thought, no, I need to lay a foundation first. I'm open
Okay,
to coming back later. Yes,
no,
it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor to be invited. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for attending.
okay, thank you. We'll get in touch and we'll keep in touch with you. Goodbye, everyone.
All right. Bye.